I'm a 22-year-old man, and my girlfriend is 26. She is my first serious girlfriend, and she says I am her first quality boyfriend, even though she has more experience than me. When we met a little over 2 years ago, we had a rough start because she didn't want a serious relationship, while that was all I wanted. I persevered, and eventually, she agreed to be together. During the first year, we were a very happy couple with no problems and no fighting. We traveled together, cooked together, and enjoyed each other's company. During that time, I had some serious issues with my parents. I had to find my own place, pay for my education, rent, food, everything by myself. It was the worst time of my life, and she helped me get through it, for which I am forever grateful. I was convinced what a wonderful, kind, and generous person she was, and I felt true connection and understanding. She is, to this day, the person that knows me best, both inside and out. However, we started having arguments after our first anniversary. They were mostly about little things, rarely anything serious, and we managed to get over them and work together. But around the 1.5-year mark, I started to notice the amount of compromise I was making, and it began to take its toll on me. My personal situation with my parents made me more anxious, and I struggled to remain calm and collected. Compromises and issues. 1. Career and ambition. She is 26 years old and has never had a stable job. She had one short internship in a library 6 years ago and worked as a receptionist for 2 weeks 2 years ago. She has a small handmade jewelry page on Instagram that makes a little money, but nowhere close to minimum wage. She relies on her mother financially, which has led me to cover most of our activities together. I love doing it, but I cannot accept her lack of motivation or ambition to change. When I bring up this issue, she says it's her problem and questions how it affects our relationship. I do not want to be with someone who has no prospects and no ambition to change at her age. She completed a user interface user experience program 6 months ago, but hasn't bothered finding a job. She has a bachelor's degree in Korean studies, which she deems useless and doesn't want to pursue. 2. Nihilistic view on life. She has a very nihilistic view on life, which is the opposite of me. I am optimistic and goal-driven, with dreams and goals to achieve. She, on the other hand, doesn't consider anything serious worthwhile and thinks there's no point in anything. She rarely talks about it, but it is evident. She has been like this even before I knew her. I've tried to help her for the past 2 years with serious conversations and advice, but she hasn't taken it. 3. Intimacy issues. Our intimate life is non-existent. We are in our 20s and, in 2 years and 2 months, have had intercourse twice. I'm even ashamed to admit it. This upsets me a lot and is a big compromise I'm making. She has recurring gynecological issues, which she claims make intercourse off the table. This makes me feel undesired, worthless, and like half the man I am. I can't express my frustration because I don't want to disregard her health issues. She has gone to the gynecologist multiple times, and they always say she is fine, and that is just redness and mild irritation, testing negative for sexually transmitted diseases and infections. She has stopped pleasuring me through other means like oral intimacy because she is frustrated she can't get the same in return. She agreed to start showing me some affection through after an argument, and now I get oral intimacy around once every 1.5, 2 weeks, which is still very little. Sometimes we go over a month without intimacy of any kind. It bothers me a lot. I have always been a giver, and I do not care about me finishing that much. I find it as enjoyable if she receives the pleasure, and it bothers me even more that I cannot provide it for her. She even claims I am her best partner in bed, and no one has ever made her feel things I do. We have completely given up on things getting better, and we have come to the conclusion on numerous occasions that things are not going to change anytime soon. As crazy as it sounds, I have started to lose intimate attraction because I have been rejected so many times when I initiate and make advances. I almost never try to initiate because it is futile. I'm either ignored, get an excuse, or she says that we just can't. We are very open about our past experiences, and it has never bothered me to hear about her past intimacy experience. But now when I think about it, it makes me sick to imagine things she has done for others that she has never done or ever do for me. I know this is a me problem, and I try to not get retroactively jealous because this is not me. 4. Frequent arguments. We argue a lot. We see each other maybe 2, 3 times a week because I work 9, 5 on weekdays, making it hard to find time. I have a stable job in a good field, but financially I'm not very well off. So we spend time at her place a lot. Recently, 2 out of 3 times we see each other, we end up in a fight over basic things. This has led me to spend more of my free time alone, gaming or relaxing at home, because the mental toll these arguments have on me is immense. This upsets her, leading to more arguments. The worst argument was last week when I spilled some water on her kitchen table. She got angry, grabbed my wrist, and purposefully ripped the bracelet she made for our 2-year anniversary, leaving a scratch wound. I considered breaking up but decided to ignore the issue and move forward, thinking it would be best for you. 5. Other issues. She dislikes my parents because of what they did, even though we are on good terms now. She fears they will control our life together, which I've assured her won't happen. I understand her concerns, but I believe I have everything under control and should be allowed to spend my free time as I wish, including playing video games, which has been a lifelong hobby. Our relationship is full of little arguments, mainly raised by her over mundane things. When the issue is serious, we work hard to overcome it. But recently I've grown hopeless. The person I once considered the love of my life has become someone I can't imagine sharing a roof with. I understand I can be needy and want a lot, but I value a relationship as a long-term commitment where I share a future with that person. I'm not at peace or calm around her because she is not calm. She gets anxious and annoyed easily and has become very negative. I am not perfect and have started doing such things as well, which I despise about myself. I mourn the old me that was calm, collected, and motivated, and I mourn the first year of our relationship. To add, I also want to express the positive side of our relationship. She is a truly kind and caring person. We trust each other completely, and I have never worried about infidelity. She is really good at doing the little things to brighten my day. When she is not overthinking or in her head, she is a little ball of joy that would brighten my day every time I see her. She is a very good listener, and she is one of the only people I have ever felt comfortable with sharing personal information and my feelings, as I am a little tight-lipped about myself in front of others. She makes me comfortable, and at her core, I would consider her wife material. I love her. I see the good, kind, generous, fun, and beautiful person I know and love is still in front of me. She promised me to try hard to fix her side of things after our last big fight, and I see how much she loves me and how much it is bothering her well. She wants to continue forward together and try our best. This, unfortunately, is not the first time we have tried to fix the rift that is slowly forming between us without results. I've always been the we will work through it together kind of guy, but I have lost hope for us. I don't know if I can fix myself mentally while under the pressure of our relationship in its current state. I have grown hopeless about her fixing her view on life, becoming more ambitious and motivated, enjoying life truly, finding a well-paid job, having a healthy, intimate life, which I have given up on completely for more than a year now. I have become a shell of myself and don't have anyone to share with because I'm ashamed to admit the struggles I go through. I'm aware she is going through her own struggles, and we have talked about it. Now for an update, I'm torn on what to do. I feel like if I break up, I have betrayed the 2+ years we have spent together, betrayed her and myself. We have endured so much and made so much compromise in the last 2 years, and it feels like it would all have been for nothing. I feel like I am wasting my youth, but at the same time, I've been convinced she is the one for so long, and now I realize this may not be the case. At the beginning, she didn't believe in this relationship, and I convinced her to. Now it is the opposite. I'm almost convinced it can't be saved and is hopeless. And she believes we can fix things. She always says that, but it almost never becomes reality, especially with her own mental health and nihilistic, pessimistic thoughts. She has even said when things go well for her, she likes to sabotage good things because she believes she doesn't deserve anything good. If I have to be honest, in her current state, I wouldn't start a relationship with her, and she does not meet my criteria for a partner. I have a feeling she feels the same way about me. I realize all these burdens and compromises are not sustainable, and I can't continue this way. I have become a ghost of myself. I am completely torn on what I should do. Should we separate or should I stay? The only thing keeping me still and making all these compromises are all the great memories we have together, that I know who she truly is, and the wonderful person she is, in fact, and the generosity of her and her family in my time of need. And at the end of the day, I still love her. I am completely torn and mentally exhausted. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. 3 days ago, we had another argument. This time, it was about something as trivial as me not putting my shoes in the right spot when I came over. It escalated quickly, and before I knew it, we were shouting at each other. She accused me of not caring about her space, and I felt like she was nitpicking again. I stormed out of her apartment, needing some air to clear my head. I walked around the block a few times, trying to calm down. When I finally went back, she was sitting on the couch, crying. Seeing her like that broke my heart. I sat down next to her and we talked, really talked. For the first time in a long while, we both laid everything out on the table. She admitted that she felt like she was losing me, and that her anxiety was making her act out. I told her how much the constant arguments were wearing me down. We both agreed that we needed to make some serious changes if we wanted to stay together. The next day, she surprised me by saying she had applied for a few jobs. She showed me the emails she had sent out, and I could see she was genuinely trying. It was a small step, but it meant a lot to me. I decided to take a day off work to spend time with her and show her that I was committed to making things work too. We went to a park and had a picnic, something we hadn't done in ages. It felt like old times, and for a moment I felt hopeful. But then, later that evening, we had another setback. She got a call from her mom, who was upset about something trivial. This triggered her anxiety again, and she started spiraling. I tried to comfort her, but she pushed me away, saying she needed space. I felt helpless. I went home that night feeling more confused than ever. The following day, I decided to talk to my best friend about everything. I hadn't opened up to anyone about my relationship issues, but I needed an outside perspective. He listened patiently and then said something that struck a chord with me. He said, "You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed, but you can support them while they try to fix themselves." It made me realize that while I couldn't change her, I could be there for her as she tried to change. That evening, I went back to her place. She was still upset, but we managed to have a calm conversation. I told her about my talk with my friend and how I wanted to support her, but I also needed her to meet me halfway. She agreed and said she would start seeing a therapist to work on her anxiety and nihilistic views. It was a huge relief to hear her say that. Over the next few days, things started to improve. She got a call back for an interview, and she was excited about it. We also started setting aside time each day to talk about our feelings and any issues that came up. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. However, the real turning point came when we had a deep conversation about our intimacy issues. She opened up about how her past experiences had affected her, and how she felt immense pressure to be perfect in that aspect of our relationship. I reassured her that I loved her for who she was, and that we could take things slow. We decided to see a couples therapist to work on this together. Reflecting on our past, I realized that a lot of her behavior stemmed from her childhood. Her parents had always been critical and demanding, which had made her anxious and fearful of failure. She had never felt truly accepted for who she was, and that had carried over into our relationship. Understanding this made me more empathetic towards her struggles. I also thought about my own past and how my issues with my parents had made me more anxious and needy. I had always felt like I had to prove myself, and that had put a lot of pressure on our relationship. Recognizing this helped me understand why I'd been so frustrated and why I needed to work on myself too. In the end, we both realized that we had a lot of work to do, both individually and as a couple. But for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful. We were taking steps to improve our relationship, and that was a positive outcome in itself. Thank you for reading. Aita for telling my husband to stop feeling guilty about his stalker. Ex-girlfriend. My husband, 40 years old, and I, 33 years old, have been married for almost 1 year and dating since 2016. My husband has an ex he dated 11 years ago, and the relationship was only 10 months. She fell for him hard by the sounds of it, and he was always honest with her about his feelings towards her. He didn't see it as a serious relationship, and she didn't have many goals or drive in life, which was a big thing in her personality he didn't like. Also, she slapped him once, and that was the end of it for him. Since 2017, she has been making weird, odd attempts to get back into contact with him, making fake Instagram accounts, texting him from random numbers. Originally, he ignored it as it wasn't absolutely certain it was her, but the information brought up in the texts, direct messages, all pointed towards her. She would reach out to him once or twice a year. We both generally ignored it and considered it pathetic and desperate. Recently, it's becoming more and more bold. She currently lives between our current country and Iran. She called him 2 years ago from her Iranian number. My husband didn't know that was her and picked up thinking it could have been a friend he lost contact with, who reaches out from time to time. She told him that since he left her, her hair became gray. He told her he's very happy with me. We're engaged and he's not interested. Time to move on. It's been 9 years at that point. She then asked if he can introduce her to someone cute like him. He said, "Yo, whatever, then goodbye." Last year, he received a series of horrible threats from a local number. The number tried calling him, but once he didn't pick up, because we had a hunch it was her, it started texting him. When he didn't reply, it became very threatening and aggressive towards him and his family. We filed a police report, but obviously nothing came of it. Now, 5 days ago, she called my mother-in-law, his mom! She's never even met his mom. She got his mom's number using a fake name pretending to be a patient of hers. She tells my mother-in-law she's a friend of my husband's sister and wants her number and starts asking for our addresses, my sister-in-law's and ours. My mother-in-law refused to give the information out without knowing who it was, clearly. She then explains who she is and of her relationship with my husband, saying she only wants to be friends with my husband. My mother-in-law explained to her, without knowing the past interactions, nothing good could come from that, and he's now married, and she basically needs to leave us be. She doesn't believe it's appropriate of her to reach out and now to leave it in the past. She told my mother-in-law she's coming back to our current country next week. My main concern is, because of my husband's profession, he can easily be found online. He is in the medical field, so he's required to be licensed, and anyone can search him up in the database. Plus, his offices are publicly advertised. We have talked about how he should approach it if she shows up, and to ask her to leave and if she refuses to call the police. I also told him to tell his staff to keep an eye out and also have the same approach if she shows up. Now, what do we do? Just see how it plays out and continue to report if it becomes increasing or threatening? This is ridiculous. I considered messaging her but was advised by my sister-in-law not to, because it's probably the type of attention she wants. Husband also has been very clear he doesn't want contact with us. The police told us to write that on the messages. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, 3 days ago, things took a turn for the worse. My husband was at work when his receptionist called him, saying a woman was at the front desk asking for him. He immediately knew it was her. He told his receptionist to ask her to leave, but she refused. She started making a scene, yelling that she needed to talk to him. My husband had no choice but to call the police. They arrived quickly and escorted her out, but she was screaming that she just wanted to be friends and that he was being unreasonable. That night, we had a long talk about what happened. My husband was visibly shaken, and I could see the stress was getting to him. He admitted that he felt guilty for not being able to handle the situation better. He felt like he was failing to protect me and his family. I tried to reassure him, but I could tell he was struggling with his emotions. The next day, we decided to take some extra precautions. We installed security cameras around our house and at his office. We also informed his staff about what happened and instructed them to call the police if she showed up again. My husband even considered hiring a security guard, but we decided to wait and see if things escalated further. Later that evening, my mother-in-law called us, sounding worried. She said the woman had called her again, this time from a different number. She was crying and begging for my mother-in-law to convince my husband to talk to her. My mother-in-law told her firmly that it was inappropriate and that she needed to move on. But the woman wouldn't listen. She kept insisting that she just wanted closure and that she couldn't move on without it. This conversation with my mother-in-law brought up some old feelings for my husband. He confessed that he had always felt a bit of guilt about how things ended with her. He never really gave her a proper explanation, and he wondered if that was why she couldn't let go. I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to do the right thing, but he also knew that engaging with her would only make things worse. The following day, we received a letter in the mail. It was from her. She had written a long, emotional letter detailing how much she missed him and how she couldn't move on. She mentioned that she had been in therapy and that her therapist suggested she reach out for closure. My husband read the letter silently, his face a mix of anger and sadness. He handed it to me, and I could see the desperation in her words. She was clearly struggling, but we knew that responding would only encourage her. We decided to take the letter to the police and add it to our report. They advised us to continue documenting everything and to avoid any direct contact with her. They also suggested we consider a restraining order if things didn't improve. That night, my husband and I had another heart-to-heart. He opened up about his feelings of guilt and responsibility. He admitted that he had always been a bit of a people-pleaser and that he struggled with setting boundaries. This situation was forcing him to confront those issues, and it was taking a toll on him. I could see how much he was hurting, and it broke my heart. We also talked about our own relationship and how this was affecting us. I admitted that I was scared and that I felt helpless. I hated seeing him so stressed and anxious. We both agreed that we needed to support each other and stay strong. We couldn't let her come between us. The next day, my husband received a call from his sister. She had been doing some digging and found out that the woman had a history of obsessive behavior. She had done something similar to another ex-boyfriend years ago. This information was both a relief and a concern. It confirmed that her behavior wasn't our fault, but it also meant that she might not stop anytime soon. We decided to take a break and spend some time together, away from the stress. We went for a walk in the park and talked about our future. We both realized that we needed to focus on our own happiness and not let her control our lives. It was a small moment of peace in the midst of the chaos. As we walked, my husband shared a story from his past that I hadn't heard before. He told me about a time when he was in college and had to deal with a difficult roommate. He had tried to be accommodating and understanding, but it only made things worse. Eventually, he had to stand up for himself and set firm boundaries. It was a turning point for him, and he realized that sometimes you have to put your own well-being first. This story gave me a new perspective on our current situation. It reminded me that my husband had faced challenges before and had come out stronger. It also made me see that his struggle with setting boundaries wasn't a new issue. It was something he had been dealing with for a long time. As we headed home, we felt a renewed sense of determination. We knew that we couldn't control her actions, but we could control how we responded. We decided to focus on our own lives and not let her dictate our happiness. Thank you for reading. Aita for confessing my love to my best friend. Only for her to choose her ex-girlfriend over me. I am a 21-year-old bisexual man. I am also a pretty demisexual romantic man, which means that I usually don't get any romantic or intimacy feelings or emotions towards people that I don't have a substantial connection with. I have had a crush on one of my best friends for a few years by now. I met Amber, not real name, midway through high school. She is a peculiar person. To put it bluntly, she hates men. Rightfully so, I'll give her that, we suck. She believes that most men are potential rapists and are condescending towards women, since we see them as inherently weaker human beings. I don't agree with her vision. I have let her know that much. And on many occasions, we've had a healthy amount of friendly arguing surrounding similar topics. Despite this, we are very, very close friends. After years and years of knowing each other and hanging out together, we have built the foundations to what probably is one of the strongest friendships I've ever had. We've both seen each other at our worst. We both have been there for each other at our worst, and genuinely, she is just one of those people who, regardless of how my day was going, her presence never fails to make it that much better. She is so funny, pretty, smart, kind, and interesting. We have so many interests in common that we almost never run out of topics to talk about. Did you know that Weenie Grayson, Batman's second son and Latin America's son, is called Ricardo Tapia. I sure didn't, but that alone started a 30-minute conversation that somehow derived into what our respective first introduction to Archive of Our Own was like. Whenever our group decides to hang out, 9/10 times, we'll end up deciding to walk together the entire way home. Not precisely a short distance, mind you, just so that we can talk on our way back. I truly cannot remember the last time we had an awkward silence. We have discussions for sure, but we both know we prefer to be on good terms by the end of it. But if everything was peachy, I wouldn't be making this post asking for your advice. I know we are not a couple. I know maybe we'll never be one, but I decided to come to you as opposed to a friend that can easily tell who I am talking about. First of all, the whole hating men thing, while true, take it with the knowledge that the men in her family were not the best guys of the bunch. The women neither, mind you, but I guess despite any abuse she received from her mother, she still found it easier to empathize with her than with her father. However, not only has she managed to pull through like a champ throughout her adolescence and currently her young adulthood, she has also found it in her heart to be very present in the lives of the young children her father had with his new spouse, thus being a better older sibling to them than her older brother was to her. I wouldn't say I'm scared to tell her how I feel. I've felt that with other people, this is different. What if she knows how I feel already? What if I ruin the friendship? She has told me I am one of her very few male friends. I don't want her to believe that a man and a woman can't be just platonic friends. The reason why I say I think she knows I like her is not only because girls are pretty good at figuring these things out, I have also already told her. It was a long time ago. We were both around 15 and my feelings weren't nearly as developed as they are now. I said, Amber, I like you, but I don't want to date, so let's just continue to be friends in probably a very stuttery way and with a tomato red face. Right after what I said was said, I turned around and ran out the school exit and right into summer break. A few years later, midway through 2021, she hinted at the fact that all of that buffoonery I pulled back then might have caused her to have a crush on me at one point. I asked her a few days later and she confirmed this was the case, but the whole thing never moved on from there. A few months ago, we recalled that whole period of time and half joking, she said, "You know, that was unfair of you to do that." Huh? Yeah, you dropped that on me just like that and then ran away right after. You didn't give me time to respond. Yeah, right. Like, you would have returned my feelings back then. Be honest. Would you have really said yes to me if I had decided to stay? She didn't respond. That same night, as usual, I walked her home. Once we arrived, we looked at each other and I wanted to say it. I was going to say it, but I didn't, partly because she was considerably wasted. I just couldn't find it in me to tell her how much I love her. I love you. I could not say those 3 words, in spite of how much I wanted to. So instead of telling her that, I told her everything else. All the things you now know, how I love our conversations, how I feel comfortable and safe around her, how proud and happy she makes me for all the accomplishments she makes every single day, how I love how much she cares about her family, how every day with her is better than a day without her, how I intentionally take a longer walk home from college just to pass by her workplace and say, hi, how I don't mind at all that when she asks me to stay there a while longer so that we can have lunch together, how we can talk about virtually anything we have the slightest interest in with each other and have a blast just geeking out for hours on end. When I finally stopped talking, I looked up and saw her wiping her tears off just before she came in and hugged me. The hug must have lasted at least a minute. We separated, we walked in different directions. I got home, I lied down, and I drifted off. She says she mostly likes women. She says she finds most men pretty unapproachable. I like Amber, I do. I constantly daydream about us holding hands, greeting, and seeing each other off with a kiss. Getting depressed at the sight of the current housing market. Getting an apartment anyway, living together. Being woken up by the sight of each other, things like that. I would confess, sure, but I would only do it if I had a confirmation that her answer would be yes. It just doesn't feel right. It feels selfish. What if this whole thing is her interpretation of what friendship is? What if she doesn't want it to end? What if I have just misread everything since the first moment? I want her to be happy. It by no means has to be with me. Now, for a few comments before the update. Well, actually, this post didn't have any comments. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for checking in. So, a lot has happened in the past month. After that night when I poured my heart out to Amber, things got a bit complicated. The next day, she texted me, saying she wanted to talk. We met up at our usual coffee shop, and she seemed different, more serious. She told me she needed some time to think about everything I had said. I understood and gave her the space she needed. During that time, I tried to keep myself busy. I hung out with other friends, focused on my studies, and even picked up a new hobby, photography. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop thinking about Amber. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, wondering if I had said too much or not enough. A week later, Amber called me and asked if we could meet up again. This time we went for a walk in the park. She told me she had been doing a lot of thinking and that she appreciated everything I had said. She admitted that she had feelings for me too, but she was scared. Scared of ruining our friendship, scared of getting hurt, and scared of what it would mean for her identity. She said she needed more time to figure things out. I told her I understood and that I would wait as long as she needed. We hugged, and for a moment, it felt like everything would be okay. But then, something unexpected happened. Amber's ex-girlfriend, Lisa, showed up at the park. They had broken up a year ago, but it was clear that there were still unresolved feelings between them. Lisa looked upset and asked to talk to Amber alone. I stepped aside, feeling like an intruder in their private moment. After about half an hour, Amber came back to me, looking conflicted. She told me that Lisa wanted to get back together and that she needed to talk to her more before making any decisions. I felt a pang of jealousy, but tried to hide it. I told her to do what she needed to do and that I would support her no matter what. Over the next few weeks, Amber spent a lot of time with Lisa. We still hung out, but things felt different. There was a tension between us that hadn't been there before. One night, we were walking home together and I couldn't hold it in any longer. I asked her if she had made a decision. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said she was torn. She cared about both of us and didn't want to hurt anyone. I told her that whatever she decided, I would respect her choice. But deep down, I was hurting. I wanted to be the one she chose, but I knew I couldn't force her to feel something she wasn't ready for. We hugged and I walked her home, feeling more confused than ever. A few days later, Amber called me and asked if we could meet up. She sounded nervous, and I could tell something was up. When we met, she told me that she had decided to give things another try with Lisa. She said she needed to see if there was still something there before she could move on. I felt my heart break, but I tried to stay strong. I told her I understood and that I wanted her to be happy, even if it wasn't with me. After that, things changed between us. We still hung out, but it wasn't the same. There was a distance between us that hadn't been there before. I tried to focus on other things, but it was hard. I missed the way things used to be. One night, I was out with some friends when I got a call from Amber. She sounded upset and asked if I could come over. When I got there, she was crying. She told me that things with Lisa hadn't worked out and that they had broken up for good this time. She said she felt lost and didn't know what to do. I hugged her and told her that I was there for her. We talked for hours, and it felt like old times. But there was still a part of me that was hurting. I wanted to be more than just her friend, but I didn't know if that would ever happen. As the weeks went by, Amber and I started to rebuild our friendship. We talked about everything that had happened and tried to move forward, but there was always that lingering question of what if? What if things had been different? What if we had taken a chance on each other? One night we were sitting on her couch watching a movie when she turned to me and said, "I don't want to lose you." I looked at her and said, "You won't." She smiled and leaned her head on my shoulder. In that moment, I realized that maybe things didn't have to be perfect. Maybe it was enough to just be there for each other, no matter what. But before I get into that, let me tell you about something that happened a few days ago. I was walking home from class when I saw Amber's older brother, Jake. We had never really gotten along, but he stopped me and asked if we could talk. He told me that he had heard about everything that had happened, and that he wanted to apologize for the way he had treated Amber in the past. He said he was trying to be a better person, and that he wanted to make things right. I was skeptical, but I told him that it was up to Amber to decide if she wanted to forgive him. He nodded and thanked me for listening. It was a strange encounter, but it made me realize that people can change. Maybe there was hope for all of us. So, that's where things stand now. Amber and I are still figuring things out, but we're taking it one day at a time. It's not perfect, but it's real. And for now, that's enough. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.